In my village, they say that when a man brings a stranger into his home, he should first check if she casts a shadow. My father, Chief Obena, was a wise man. He was the wealthiest man in our clan, with a large compound filled with yam barns and goats. But when he brought Adana home, he forgot to look at the ground. He only looked at her face, and that was his first mistake. My name is Amika. I was 12 years old the day the peace in our house died. It was a Tuesday evening. The harmattan wind was blowing dust across the compound, coating the palm trees in a fine layer of brown powder. My mother, Nika, was in the outdoor kitchen. She was a strong woman with deep, dark skin and hands rough from years of farming cassava. She was pounding yam for dinner, the rhythmic sound of the pestle hitting the mortar echoing through the silence. Then we heard the sound of Father's old Peugeot 504 driving through the rusty iron gates. "He is back," Mama said, wiping sweat from her forehead with the edge of her faded blue wrapper. She didn't look happy. She looked tired. Father had been gone for 2 weeks on a business trip to the riverine area. I ran to the gate to welcome him. But when the car door opened, Father didn't come out alone. First, I saw a pair of legs. They were smooth, impossibly light-skinned, and glowing as if they had been rubbed with expensive oils. Then the woman stepped out. She was beautiful, too beautiful for a village like ours. She wore a shiny red lace blouse and a wrapper that shimmered like fish scales in the sunlight. Her hair was long and braided with cowrie shells that clicked softly when she moved. She wore heavy gold beads around her neck and ankles. Father walked around the car, beaming with a smile I hadn't seen in years. He held her hand like it was made of glass. "Nika, Emeka," he shouted, his voice too loud. "Come and welcome our new family member. This is Adana, my new wife." Mama dropped the pestle. The heavy wood hit the dirt floor with a thud. She walked slowly out of the kitchen, her eyes scanning Adana from head to toe. Mama didn't greet her. She just stood there, her arms folded across her chest. "You brought a woman from the river?" Mama asked quietly. "Without telling me?" "I am a chief," Father snapped, his face darkening. "Do I need permission to expand my family? Adana will give me sons. Strong sons." Adana smiled at Mama. It wasn't a warm smile. It was cold. Her teeth were perfectly white, but they looked small and sharp, like the teeth of a cat. "Good evening, senior wife," Adana said. Her voice sounded like water rushing over stones, smooth but dangerous. "I hope we can live in peace." She walked past Mama towards the main house. As she passed me, I smelled her perfume. It didn't smell like flowers or soap. It smelled salty. It smelled like the ocean mixed with raw fish. I wrinkled my nose. That night, the atmosphere in the compound changed. The crickets, which usually chirped loudly, were silent. The air felt heavy and damp, even though it was dry season. Mama prepared a feast to welcome the new wife because tradition demanded it. She made her special oaf soup with fresh catfish and pounded yam. It was Father's favorite. We sat on the floor of the main living room. The kerosene lamp cast long, dancing shadows on the walls. Father ate hungrily, using his hands to swallow large balls of pounded yam. "Eat, my wife," Father said, pushing the bowl towards Adana. "Nika is the best cook in the village." Adana looked at the soup. She looked at the fish. A look of pure disgust crossed her face. "I cannot eat this," she said softly. "Why?" Father asked, confused. "It is fresh fish. "I do not eat anything cooked with fire," she said. The room went silent. "And I do not eat my brothers and sisters from the water." Mama looked up, her eyes narrowing. "You don't eat cooked food? Then what will you eat? Grass?" Adana reached into her expensive handbag. She pulled out a small clay pot wrapped in white cloth. She opened it. Inside were small white chalks, GM, and something that looked like raw garden eggs. "I eat from the earth," Adana said, popping a piece of white chalk into her mouth. She crunched it loudly. The sound was like bones breaking. Father laughed nervously. "Ah, she is special. She has a delicate stomach. Nika, don't worry about her food. She will feed herself." Mama didn't laugh. She stood up and packed the plates. "Emeka," Mama whispered to me later that night as we lay on the straw mat in her hut, "do not go near that woman's room, and do not eat anything she gives you. She is not ordinary." I couldn't sleep that night. My room was across the courtyard from the guest room where Father and Adana were sleeping. The moon was full, illuminating the compound with a pale blue light. Around 2 a.m. I heard a sound. Squelch, squelch, squelch. It sounded like someone walking in wet mud. But it hadn't rained in weeks. I got up and crept to my window. I looked out through the wooden slats. Adana was standing in the middle of the courtyard. She was wearing a white nightgown that was translucent in the moonlight. She was standing by the large clay water pot where we stored our drinking water. She leaned over the pot. I thought she was thirsty, but she didn't use a cup. She plunged her whole head into the water. She kept it there. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. No human can hold their breath that long. Then she pulled her head out. She shook her hair, and water sprayed everywhere. But the scary part was her skin. In the moonlight, her light skin was glowing green. And on her back, through the thin fabric of her nightgown, I saw something moving under her skin. It looked like scales shifting and sliding. She turned her head sharply towards my window. I ducked down, my heart pounding in my chest. She knew I was watching. The next morning, the rooster crowed at dawn, but the usual peace of our compound was gone. I walked out of my room with fear in my heart, remembering the green glow of Adana's skin in the moonlight. I went to greet my father, as is tradition, but when he came out of the guest room, I almost screamed. In just one night, Chief Obena had aged 10 years. His dark, healthy skin looked gray and dry, like old parchment paper. His eyes, usually bright and commanding, were sunken deep into his skull. He walked with a stoop, leaning heavily on his walking stick. He looked like a man who had been running a marathon all night, even though he had been sleeping. Behind him walked Adana. She looked radiant. Her skin was plump and glowing. She moved with so much energy, she almost floated. It was as if she had sucked the life force straight out of my father while he slept. "Good morning, my husband," she purred, rubbing his back. "You look tired." "You should rest today," Father nodded weakly. "Yes? I feel empty. I will rest." He sat on his favorite wooden armchair on the veranda and fell asleep instantly, his mouth hanging open. Mama saw this. She said nothing to Adana. She just went to her shrine at the back of her kitchen. She took a bottle of red palm oil and poured it on the ground. She broke a kola nut and whispered prayers to our ancestors. Mama knew. This wasn't sickness. This was spiritual warfare. 2 days passed. The atmosphere in the house grew heavier. The air smelled constantly of rotting fish, no matter how much Mama swept. Then the livestock started dying. I was the one who found them. I went to the barn to feed the goats. 3 of our biggest goats were lying on the ground, dead. But it wasn't a normal death. There was no blood on the ground. There were no bite marks from a leopard or a hyena. The goats looked like dry leather sacks. They had been completely drained of blood from the inside. Their eyes were wide open in terror, white and glassy. I ran to call Mama. She looked at the goats and her hands shook. "Nothing in the bush kills like this," she whispered. "This is a python's work. A python that walks on 2 legs. She grabbed my shoulder. Her grip was tight. "Ameka, tonight is Eek Market Day. The moon will be dark. Whatever she is, she will be hungry again. We must see her true form. That night we didn't sleep. Mama rubbed a black charcoal mixture under my eyes and her eyes. She said it was Otangel medicine to help us see spirits. We hid behind the large water drum near the kitchen, watching the door of the guest room. Midnight came. The village was silent. Then the door opened. Adana stepped out. But she wasn't going to the water pot this time. She was walking towards the old storage room where we kept the yam tubers. She moved strangely, jerking her neck, twitching her fingers. She entered the storage room and left the door slightly open. Mama signaled for me to follow. We crept across the dirt courtyard, silent as ghosts. We peeked through the crack in the door. Inside, Adana was standing in front of a large mirror she had brought with her. She was making a low, hissing sound. Shiz. Then she reached behind her head. I thought she was undoing her braids, but her hands went lower to the nape of her neck. She dug her sharp fingernails into her own skin. R-R-R-R-R-I-P. The sound was like tearing wet cloth. She pulled. Her skin, her beautiful, light skin, split open down her spine. She grabbed the skin at her shoulders and peeled it forward. It came off in one piece. Her face, her breasts, her arms. She peeled it all off like a woman taking off a tight dress. Underneath the skin, she was not a woman. She was raw, red muscle and slime. Her eyes were yellow vertical slits. Her mouth was a gaping hole filled with rows of sharp teeth. And on her back large, wet fins pulsated. She was a monster. She took the human skin, the beautiful Adana suit, and hung it carefully on a wooden peg on the wall, just like a raincoat. Then the red creature turned and looked at the small window at the back of the room. It squeezed its slimy body through the bars, heading out into the night to hunt for fresh blood. I turned to look at Mama. She wasn't screaming. She was crying silent tears. "That thing is sleeping with my husband," she whispered. "It is eating him piece by piece." She looked at the human skin hanging on the wall. It looked hollow and ghostly in the shadows. "Ameka," Mama said, her voice turning hard as stone. "Go to the kitchen. Bring the pepper, bring the salt, and bring the kerosene." "What are we going to do, Mama?" I asked, trembling. Mama looked at the skin. "If she cannot put her clothes back on, she cannot live in this house. We are going to make that skin very uncomfortable." I ran to the kitchen, my heart pounding in my ears. I grabbed the heavy sack of dried red peppers, the hot ones that make your eyes water just by looking at them. I grabbed the bag of coarse sea salt, and I grabbed the jerry can of kerosene. When I got back to the storage room, Mama was already waiting. She didn't look like a gentle mother anymore. She looked like a warrior. "Grind it," she ordered, pointing to the stone grinder in the corner. I crushed the dried peppers until they were a fine, fiery powder. My nose burned and I wanted to sneeze, but I held my breath. Mama took the pepper and mixed it with the salt. Then she walked up to the hollow human skin hanging on the wall. It swayed slightly in the breeze, looking like a deflated balloon with Adana's face. Mama didn't hesitate. She took handfuls of the pepper and salt mixture and rubbed it vigorously inside the skin. She rubbed it into the arms, into the legs, and deep into the hollow mask of the face. "You want to eat my husband?" Mama whispered to the skin. "Eat this first." When she was done, the inside of the skin was coated in fire. We quickly cleaned up the spilled powder and ran back to our hiding spot behind the water drum. We waited. The darkness seemed to last forever. Just before the first light of dawn, we heard the squelching sound again. Slap, slap. The monster was returning. It squeezed its red, slimy body through the window bars. Its stomach was distended and full. It had fed well tonight. It walked towards the skin hanging on the wall. It looked tired. It needed to hide its true form before the sun rose. It stepped into the skin legs first, pulling the flesh up like a pair of trousers. Then it slipped its arms in. Finally, it pulled the face over its raw, red skull. It stood there for a second, adjusting the skin, smoothing out the seams on its back. Then the screaming started. It wasn't a human scream. It was a high-pitched, vibrating shriek that shattered the silence of the night. Yee, hot, hot, hot. Fire. The creature began to jump around the room, clawing at its own body. The salt was eating into its raw muscle. The pepper was burning its nerves like acid. It tried to peel the skin off, but the skin had tightened. It stumbled out of the storage room into the courtyard, thrashing and rolling in the dirt. "Help me! Water! Water!" It screamed in a distorted voice that sounded like Adana, but also like a beast. The noise woke the whole compound. The door to the guest room flew open. Father stumbled out, blinking sleep from his eyes. He saw his beautiful wife rolling in the dust, screaming. "Adana," he shouted, rushing towards her. "What is wrong? Who hurt you? Don't touch her, Obena." Mama shouted, stepping out from the shadows. She held the kerosene lantern in one hand and a machete in the other. "She is my wife." Father yelled, reaching for Adana. But as he touched her arm, Adana lashed out. The pain had made her lose control. Her fingernails elongated into claws, and she swiped at Father, slashing his chest. Father fell back, shocked. He looked at the wound. Then he looked at Adana. In her thrashing, the skin on her back had torn open. Through the tear, Father saw the red, pulsating slime underneath. He saw the fins. He saw the monster. What is this?" Father stammered, crawling backward on the dirt. Adana stood up. Her eyes were no longer brown. They were yellow vertical slits. She hissed at Father, realizing her cover was blown. She crouched low, ready to pounce and finish him off. "Now, Emeka!" Mama screamed. Mama threw the kerosene lantern. It spun through the air, the glass shattering as it hit Adana's chest. The kerosene splashed all over the tearing skin and the raw muscle underneath. The flame caught instantly. Whoosh! Adana became a pillar of fire. She shrieked a sound that made the village dogs howl. She ran around the compound, a burning ball of terror. She tried to run to the water pot to douse herself, but the fire was inside the skin. It was cooking her from the inside out. She ran towards the gate, but she collapsed before she reached it. She thrashed one last time, her tail fin slapping the dust, and then she lay still. The fire burned for hours. It burned with a strange blue flame and smelled of burning plastic and rotten fish. When the sun finally rose, there was nothing left but a pile of black ash and the melted gold beads she used to wear. Father sat on the veranda for 3 days without speaking. He stared at the ash. He never mentioned Adana again. He never brought another stranger home. Mama went back to the kitchen. She picked up her pestle and continued pounding yam as if nothing had happened. But every Eek market day, when the moon is dark, Mama sprinkles salt and pepper around the perimeter of our compound. Because sometimes monsters have sisters, and they might come looking for their skin.